On July 16th, 2015, one of the most startling moments in raiding history took place. Over the course of 24 hours, the champions, the reigning, dominant, multi-year heroes Method, lost practically their entire roster. Just vanished. Today, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take you on a journey of one of the most pivotal moments in raiding history. This is the beginning of when everything changed. So what happened then? They were the champions. There was nowhere else to go. Well, unfortunately, as we have proven many times in this series, being at the very high-end mythic raiding guild, whatever, does not make you immune to the same problems that happen in your normal, casual, friendly raiding guild as well. You see, all these things have one thing in common. They're full of people. And people have all kinds of opinions on all kinds of things. The landscape was changing. Now you guys are going to find this really ironic compared to what's happening these days. SCO posted in 2015. WoW raiding competition had become a two-horse race for a while, which was unhealthy. And the raiders were being more and more burdened with requirements to raid. They were now having to keep up maybe 2 alts and alternate classes, as Blizzard was stirring. They wanted to stop the blatant account sharing the racers were doing. And that's all well and good, but the big problem, as it regularly is, money. Business opportunities were creeping in and they were starting to get pretty lucrative. Okay, the fall of a guild isn't usually a snap thing. It's a combination of things over time that explodes, so let's set the scene for you. Over the past couple of years, the leadership of Method had changed a lot in terms of who was doing which task. Famously, incredible raid leader Kuznam had taken nearly all the raid management work. Officer Potham had become the primary organizer of the guild as a whole. Players such as Infi and others were now add-on specialists, and more duties had begun filtering down to not just officers, but the members as well. The thing is, none of them were technically the leader of this ship. That, as most know, was SCO. SCO had begun moving further and further away from the WoW day-to-day guild activities, and more into the brand that was Method and what its future held. The business prospects of Method, and I don't mean Method WoW, but Method as a potential major esports org. At this point in 2015, they had a pro CSGO team and WoW PvP teams. As such, new and uncomfortable terms started to be thrown around, like streaming. Completely ridiculous. Now remember, this was 2015. The first broadcasted Race to World First wasn't until September 2018. Now this ambition is something I have personal experience with, and I've talked about it a few times. When I joined Method for the second time, I was a young, up-and-coming YouTuber making scuff-ass videos with a bad microphone in a backroom bedroom. But I did make videos, and after my very first raid coming back to Method, I made a video talking about that raid. The very next day, that video was now on the front page of the Method website. This actually caused me a lot of heat with the guild. People were under the assumption that I had been brought back because of my YouTube presence. I was there to bring attention and eyeballs to Method. That wasn't the case at all, and I wanted to prove myself. And they hadn't asked permission. So I sent a message saying, you guys need to take that video down, and you need to ask me if you want to use my content that way. Now, in their defense, they did. They took it down immediately and never did anything else. However, 3 days later, I was then called into a meeting with Method management. I thought I was in trouble. But no, I was called into a meeting to discuss Method's future branding opportunities and revenue streams through YouTube, how they could grow their brand that way. As you can see, the idea of branding, growth, and marketing has been a big push internally at Method for a very long time, because that was in 2012. So in the months leading to the breakup, cliques were forming, as they do with most people not being interested in the Method brand, marketing, PvP teams, and so on, and certainly not streaming progression. At the same time, not being happy that as they saw it,
They were doing most of the work for Method Guild, which was making the money. But the money appeared to be flowing to mostly one person. They just wanted to game, push world first with their friends, and not be a part of some big corporation. The clearest public example of this came from member Tegu, who posted this when he left. I was quite disappointed how the guild meeting went last night, and how much was talked about money. This was a part of the exodus of every single member and officer of Method, excluding just two, Justway and Roger Brown, and of course Sko. Practically the entire roster left within a few hours. This of course led to the internet meme of Sko was the problem. But was that true? A few hours after the exodus, Sko took to Facebook to give his side. In that post, it is confirmed the issues mentioned above, and that he was indeed pushing in 2015 for Method to start streaming the Race to World First.
Dudes, the idea of streaming the race in 2016 is completely insane. I know it's normal to you now, but you've got to look back then. Streaming had just begun to exist. And the idea of the average WoW player wanting to sit in front of a camera with microphones on all day, every day, was extremely uncomfortable. So it is no surprise that a lot of the guild were against this idea.
In September 2015, an announcement was made. A new guild, a new dream was coming. Serenity had arrived, comprising practically all the former Method World First Raiders, and now including some fresh up-and-coming players who might be decent. They had a chance. They had done some good challenge mode times in Mists of Pandaria, like this Gingy guy, whoever he was. Serenity was to be a no BS, no fluff, just gamers with skill and experience going in to kick ass.
This team has everything, right? They have veterans who have a massive history of getting Race to World First. They have seen the light before, and now they're free. They're free of corporate overlords. They're free of chasing money as a factor, and they can just game, so they are bound to win, right? No. In May 2017, Serenity disbanded, having never achieved that world first that they had fought so hard for. So what happened?
Let's start with Serenity. They had an absolutely stellar roster of players. However, you old schoolers will remember the raid drought of Hellfire Citadel. Archimonde fell for these guys in July 2015. We didn't get a new raid tier until September 2016. Over a year of nothing to do. It was a dark time for us all. Over that time, Serenity lost at least 4 of their world first level healers. Over the time Serenity played, you will notice strange names appear in their raid frames. I won't say who, but one of these was the infamous mage Kuznam, now playing a healer to cover the losses. It is widely known that at the world first level, healers are insanely hard to come by. In Kuznam's retirement post, he mentioned that in Serenity's short lifespan, they had over 50 members of the guild. Hell, at one point, they even recruited Loz of Fat Boss TV. That's how desperate they were.
I'm joking, Loz is easily one of the best healers in the world.
They just couldn't recover that hole. They were exceptional though, achieving World 3rd Xavius, World 2nd Helya, and World 2nd Gul'dan before disbanding. What made it really bad though was on Helya and on Xavius, they were beaten by none other than Method?
How? How in the hell did Method lose its entire roster and then the very next raid tier beat that previous roster? And do you know what made it infinitely worse, to pour salt in that wound? When Method did overtake Serenity, Sko sent them this.
So let's leave Serenity and look at what Method did. Sko went on the hunt immediately, and as it turns out, a chance meeting at an airport between Sko and the raid leader of the then World 6 Guild Rapid Eye movement would change everything. After messages had been passed between a lot of potential guilds, the Rapid Eye Movement Guild seemed receptive to a possible guild merger. Their leader, known as Scripe, happened to be passing through the same city as Sko, and so they met and they had a coffee together. In that conversation, it was decided that Rapid Eye Movement would indeed move and change name to Method, bringing their players you may know like Deep Shades, Revez, Narcles, Noggy, Potter, amongst many others with him. Method, of course, offered management, money, and a chance at moving to the big show. And it turned out this Scripe guy was pretty good at raid leading, and he seemingly had an immediate connection with Roger Brown. Maybe they'll be friends one day. In the Trial of Valor, the new Method Guild got their first world first.
Wait, anything you have, boys.
Last orbs.
Anything you have.
Come on, nuke it!
1 million!
Yes, guys!
At the end of it all, after a decisive victory from their former guild, many of those same players would end up right back where they started, with that Method name above their heads, cementing them, though, as the dominant world-first guild. At least for now.
So why then did they accept all these players back who had left en masse just 7 months ago? There's a good lesson for us all here. Permanently burning bridges because of a spat or an incident, especially over minor things that happened months ago, isn't a particularly great idea, especially when the landscape around those frustrations has changed. Let's take the obvious example, streaming. It is a relatively new hobby, but 7 months later, it was taking off in a big way, and frankly, some of these players were really good at it and enjoyed it and were having a lot of fun with it. So the idea of streaming the race was not as big of a deal anymore. On top of that, you're aiming for world first, the pinnacle of the pinnacle in a game with millions of players. Refusing the best of the best, the proven, seasoned players, not a particularly good idea. And so, these guys were still playing together. They might not have been in the same guild, but with Mythic Plus coming in Legion, a lot of crossover was still happening behind the scenes, and they were more than welcomed back after a little bit of a conversation. It's a good thing to happen. However, knowers know. This wasn't to be the last mass exodus from Method, but that is a story for another time. Until then, I thank you for watching, and I'll see you again next time. Bye, guys.